Oh, and here comes Councilor Hillier. All right, ready when you are, sir.
Well, good evening and welcome everyone to the September 13th City of Tualatin work session. I'll go ahead and call this meeting into order. And tonight we have a couple items. First off is our Tualatin Moving Forward quarterly update, a virtual bus tour versus a physical tour. And I got a little sneak preview, about an hour and a half ago, Mike. So I'm assuming you're leading this, Mike, or is this someone else leading it?
Well, I'll start it out.
All right.
Who's going to put up the PowerPoint?
I'll be putting up the PowerPoint.
Okay, if you could go ahead and do that, Mike.
All right.
So we are super excited to welcome you onto our all-electric bus tour today. And this is our third Tualatin Moving Forward bus tour. And we're sorry it can't be in person again this year, but there's a lot going on in the Tualatin Moving Forward program that we're excited to show you about. If you could, the next slide. So we have some new faces this year as we welcome 2 new council members and some new staff as well. Next slide. So our tour guide this year is Mike McCarthy. So Mike is Principal Transportation Engineer and has been with the city for several years and has been working on the bond program and a number of other things, bond projects and just a number of transportation issues around town. But with Jeff's departure, Mike has taken the role of Program Director, working with the amazing team we have in place. And he's going to be our tour guide today. I will say that and point out that in this picture, so Mike's son, Tim, designed a couple of the sidewalk art projects that are in the concrete in sidewalk around town. And this picture is adorable. And we appreciate artist Tim that came along with engineer Mike. So I'll turn it over to Mike to take us through the tour. Watch your step.
Well, thank you. And Tim was the artist who drew the happy deer stamp. And he's the youngest of my 3 boys. I'm really blessed. So everyone, please take your seats and buckle your seat belts. Please keep all hands, arms, and any other objects inside the bus at all times. And we are now pulling out from the Pole Center, taking a left on the Boons Ferry Road and heading south. Our first stop will be the Garden Corner Curbs project. And you probably remember the nursery that we're working around, and we had to keep Uma in the slideshow. And so this is Blake Street, and this is kind of the area of what it looks like. And a lot of the origin for this project was people from the IBAC neighborhood to the south and the Midwest neighborhood to the north saying, we'd love to be able to walk or ride our bikes from one side to the other. And there's no good place to do that. And especially if you're trying to ride uphill through this corridor, it's not fun. But it will be a whole lot better in a couple months. So as you recall, we did a lot of talking with the public. I think on this one, I never got a chance to actually take off my safety vest. I think I had it out, but I was setting things up and then got over here to the table. And so many people were interested in wanting to hear about the project and what was going on that it was just a steady stream and it was wonderful. And, the vision of people being able to walk in this corridor, at least now they'll be on a side path and the vehicles will be able to use this area. And this is a bit of a time lapse. One of the key things we had to do to make this project work is replace the culvert where Hedges Creek flows under 105th Avenue. And so this is the existing corrugated metal, or I call it wrinkled tin, pipe that was going underneath the road. Here's 105th going up, so it turns the corner to become Blake Street. The nursery is back in this area. So this is a new retaining wall that was already been built for the road. So one of the first things that the contractor did was take away all the pavement from the existing road. in a lot of the area. And then we've got some time lapse here. So this is the way it looked at first, with some of the vegetation cleared out for some of the areas of the creek channel that we'd be restoring. And this was just a couple weeks into it. The excavation goes pretty fast. So they removed the existing culvert. They had to put in this big steel I-beam to suspend the existing active sewer line that had to stay in service throughout the whole project. And then this was the excavator they could use to actually drive back and forth underneath it. They had to put the creek into this bypass pipe. So these are sandbags to make a dam for the creek. The creek flows through the pipe here and then comes out there under the road and eventually out at the end of the project. They had to remove a whole lot of mucky clay soil, those old creek sediment that wouldn't support a culvert or a road for that matter. So, and sorry about that, I went back to the first week. So we went through this week. And within a couple of weeks, this is the big concrete box culvert. So each of these are individual pieces of concrete. It's 15 feet wide from wall to wall. It's 5 feet high. And we had to design a wide but shallow opening in order for it to stay underneath the sewer line. And then all the other utilities will be coming through here, like underground power and gas and everything else ends up running over the top of the culvert. So, and then it's filled with different sizes of rock. They're specially designed for this area to be fish friendly. And there were some fish in the creek that were humanely removed before we started doing this work. And we anticipate them being able to swim through here later. And then the next week, we now have the top pieces placed across the top of the culvert. So this is where the place for the creek to flow through. And then there's specially designed soils all around it to make those areas impervious, because we want to make sure the water stays in the culvert and doesn't erode the road. So this is the next phase of the project. And then we get up to a couple weeks ago, where it looks about like this. We started building the retaining walls that end up holding up the road over top of the culvert, and some of the large equipment that is being used to build it. So this is the last of the panoramic photos that I have here. They've since removed the sandbags and the pipe to allow the creek, and is now flowing through the culvert. And you can start seeing more of the things up on top taking shape. That's where a lot of the work is happening now. Any questions on the culvert work? All right. That was a big portion just to be able to get a wide pathway across. But we made quite a few environmental enhancements to the creek, and some of this we can actually take credit for on future projects for some of the rest of the program. So we don't have to do as much stormwater treatment and mitigation on other projects. So this is a little more of. Sure.
I really appreciate the learning more about culverts. I didn't know much about them. And I just had a tour of the Tualatin, and they were talking about erosion issues. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to how you're designing to reduce erosion concerns in that area.
Sure. Let me just jump one slide forward here. So this is the culvert outfall. So the creek flows through here. And this is an engineered wood structure, or basically logs laid in particular ways. And then a number of sticks in through this area to hold this bank in place. This had an old stone wall that was built a long time ago that we found didn't qualify as being historic, but didn't want to put the stone back in to allow it to flow through a more natural channel. And so it's designed with quite a few of these interlocking logs and then sticks. And these are actually live stakes. And live stake basically means a piece of a plant that they stick into the ground that is designed to eventually grow roots and become a tree. And that's used to hold in the rest of the creek. There's a fair amount of work done since this was all, since this photo was taken. And then the sandbags were removed, the bypass pipe was then taken out. And so, and then this is a view from right where 105th turns and becomes Blake. So this is looking north on 105th Avenue. And this is about on the outside of where the path will be. And this particular area, the path diverges from the roadway just a little bit. And then the area in here, you can see my mouse kind of just before the curbing. That's where the stormwater treatment facility, or the first one, will be going. And it'll eventually drain into this catch basin. And the road actually runs between this curb and the wall. And it's designed to stay fairly narrow. It's actually a couple feet wider than the current road, just allowing a little bit of shy distance next to the curbs, but it's intentionally designed to be narrow to try to keep traffic speeds down and keep this as a safer place for people to walk and bike. Then this picture up here on the right is Blake Street along the nursery. And this is the road from curb to curb. The pathway will be over in this area on the right. And this is showing a little more of how this looks. It was one of the big design parameters was to keep it within the existing space between the existing trees, so we didn't have to take out any of the major trees along the road. There are some trees removed down by the creek that were already damaged and were damaged by the ice storm. But the vast majority of the trees have been able to stay in place, and it's particularly designed for that. And so this is the culvert outfall that we talked about already. And then we move on up to our next stop. So we head back north on 105th, take a right on Avery. And then we get to the area of Tualatin Elementary School here. And this is a project all around the elementary school designed to help kids get to the elementary school better. And I'd like to introduce Katie Mangle, who works for Alta Planning and Design. And she served as our owner's representative, general assistant, and her company's taken care of all kinds of things in the program over the years. And Katie can tell us a little more about this project.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I've been honored to help the city with the bond program since actually just before the vote. And so it's been a pretty magical experience, I have to say. It's amazing what the city's doing and how well the community's supporting it. Mike, can you go to the next slide? I think this shows what it's all about, right? It's about these kiddos just trying to get to school. This project in particular was part of the bond program as a school, safe access to schools, and also addressing kind of slowing the traffic that's kind of cutting through the neighborhood. Particularly with Tualatin Elementary, though, as we find with many schools, there's also some confusion around parking for parents dropping kids off. So all of those things were coming together here. We had people driving too fast on Saggart, parents, kind of sitting in the travel lane waiting for their kids or waiting to drop off their kids. And then also there's some trucks that were kind of moving through the area. So this was a little bit of a complex project because the solution is not one big project. It was many projects spread throughout the neighborhood. And you go to the next slide. Actually, go to the next slide. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Thank you. Perfect. So this shows the sprinkling of projects around the neighborhood. So you see Tualatin Elementary on the left side there, thanks. And along Southwest 95th is really where a lot of the parents who were dropping off their kids were kind of queuing up there. So then Sagard and Avery were important access streets, both driving and walking along those streets, but also kids trying to cross those streets. So what you see here is a smattering of different kinds of projects, and we're going to build it in 2 phases. So I'll just maybe emphasize the part that's going to construction this year. So the number 1 is adding a throughway stop at 95th and Sagard, and then adding a new mid-block crossing, right there at number 2. And that is going to go to construction imminently, and be something that people will see out there right now, which is really important because a lot of kids coming from the apartment complex to the north of Sagard and kind of going to the school as a park to going to school there. And then next year we'll be doing filling some sidewalk gaps on 93rd and doing some striping on 95th that will help clean up some of the confusion that is happening around the parent drop off. Another part of this project is cleaning up, so to speak, the speed zone. This, go slow when flashing, when kids are present type of thing. So a lot of the speed zone signs were sort of inconsistent and not in the right place. So that'll be much more clear. So hopefully that will go a long way towards addressing safety and helping kids be able to walk them back to school or get out safely when they need to be dropped off. We've been working hand in hand with the community from the very beginning. This started, how we even got to this point was what we called a walk audit. We did an on-site walk with the principal and with some parents and teachers, and started talking to the PTA. This was right at the beginning of the bond program. And all the way through, we've been touching base with the folks who live in the neighborhood along 93rd and north of Sagard and updating the principal. Now we can go back to the slide just before this. So even just coming down to trying to define some of the details of the project, we knew that we wanted to do something on 93rd because folks have been complaining for years about people kind of cutting through using 93rd when there was congestion on 95th. So even just to decide, what does that really mean? What would we build there? We did a follow-up survey just for those folks, asking them what these are a few solutions, but you tell us. And so it looks like probably most people are in favor of speed bumps, but as you can see here, like many things, we ask group's opinion. There's no one winner, because a lot of people said just leave it alone. So 23% said to just leave it alone. But so we're still working through exactly what to do with this. But this is just an example of how we've been using many different tools to ask the community members how we should be spending this money. And it's really been a great experience to work with folks, as they such a high level of participation, people who care so much about solving these problems. Want to go to the next project? We can get back in that bus. There we go. And go to a very popular project.
So we're driving now across Sagard Street and come to a 4-way stop that some people get a little confused about. Some of you may remember this video.
Here we are at the intersection of Martinazzi Avenue and Sagard Street. As you can see, there's a lot of activity happening here. A number of turning movements, so people turning different directions.
I'm glad that truck didn't
pedestrians
turn right.
going by. There's a park and ride at one corner of this intersection. There's also a bus you can see coming here on the 96 route. So a lot of people using transit, walking, trying to get around. And often there's some confusion.
We've been hearing a lot about that confusion. And so we're in the process of building the traffic signal at this intersection. Sorry about that. And so a lot of the work that's happening right now is pipe work to build the storm drainage that's necessary to accommodate the road. So Sagard Street's getting widened about 7 feet to the south, which will give us enough room to have one traveling each direction, the center turn lane, and then bike lanes and decent sidewalks in there. So as you're probably seeing now, we're rebuilding some of the corners. We have to rebuild some of the ramps to meet Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. And you're probably seeing a lot of Sagert Street being kind of shaved out to the south. The current schedule is to get the road fully paved back, and including the widening area, and the sidewalk in place by the end of October. And that's particularly important because it's really hard to pave and do concrete work once you get into the winter and it gets really rainy, and it's hard to do that well. So that'll be there for a couple months. And then the signal, it takes a long time to order signal poles and other equipment, and that should be coming in right around the end of December. So we're hoping for a wonderful Christmas present at this intersection with the new traffic signal. Any other questions as we're going? All right. We've had a lot of people want this traffic signal and want us to get this project going, so we're glad to be doing it. And then we move on up to another one that we're working on now, and that's Tualatin Sherwood Road and Nyberg Street from Martinazzi over to I-5. And we're working on a lot of the specifics with the state right now. There's kind of three key areas for this project. The first one is right in here. It's right about at Nyberg at the I-5 southbound ramp. And what's happening here is 80 to 90% of the traffic is turning right from Nyberg, onto I-5 south, or the loop ramp onto I-5 north. And, only 10 to 20% are going across onto Nyberg. And what's happening is so many people are getting stuck in the right lane. And that right lane is backing up all the way through our downtown for quite a ways there. So what we're trying to work out with the state is a plan where traffic in the right lane goes right onto I-5 south. And then the middle lane primarily goes all the way across to I-5 northbound. And then people can still get to I-5 north even from farther left. And then we get the third lane going across to Nyberg. And we want to design it so that when people get to about where this dot is, that they're in the correct lane. Not the right lane, the correct lane. And so we're trying to help people, particularly going to I-5 north, to be in the middle lane. And so we're designing a lot of driver information there. And then even just past Martinazzi, right now there's just two lanes, and it's I-5 traffic in those two lanes, but there's also some Nyberg traffic. And that Nyberg traffic has to wait till they get almost all the way up to the Cabela's signal before they can move into the left lane. And that ends up using up some of the green time for the line to go through that area. So by widening out into the median to create a third lane eastbound, we can help get that Nyberg traffic out of the flow of traffic onto I-5 and help everybody move through better. So we're continuing to work with the state on this, particularly as you get into a freeway interchange. They get real particular about what they want to see. And so we're working with them on making sure that what we do meets their requirements and, passes muster with their design before the construction starts. And the next project, we're now going back to Boons Ferry Road, south of 12th and Sherwood Road, and looking to fill in the gaps in the sidewalks and the bike lanes. And we're doing a lot of talking with the community about what they want to see, and Katie can walk us through a little more of that.
Great project. It's really exciting because Boons Ferry Road is, from a walking and biking and taking transit point of view, it's pretty hodgepodge, to be honest, for such an important corridor. There are so few corridors that go throughout the length of the city, and this is one. And people love walking on those pathways, and there's a lot of use of the bike lanes that exist. And there are several schools. So it's a very important corridor, and we're all very excited that this project is going to fill in those gaps. I think a lot of people would also love it if the trucks disappeared, or if the traffic just magically went away, we're not going to be able to do that with this project. But we are at least going to make it so that those, really, there's some of those pathways that should be fantastic and they're really bumpy and it's really unsafe, and places where the bike lane just drops and where the sidewalk ends. We're going to fix most of those. So let's see, let's go to the next one. As Mike mentioned, keep going, that just shows the corridor. We had a wonderful summer of both virtual and in-person outreach. It was such a treat to have these. We had 3 events that were out there in the corridor. This was the one, I think the first one that we did. So it was, nobody was wearing masks because it was, back in June when we all thought we were in the clear, and or maybe early July. Then we had 2 additional events after this where everybody masked up and tried to stay distant. And it was a great opportunity to talk with people out in the corridor about their preferences for, in this situation, it was about whether we need to also build a sidewalk in addition to improving the path. And almost everybody said, no, we love the pathway, like just make that a little bit better. So we got great comments. We also had an online open house. Hundreds of people participated, asked a lot of detailed questions about what their preferences were at some key locations where the design team, the engineers were saying, well, we could do that or we could do that. So we said, let's ask the people what they think. And they had a great response. So we're in the middle of trying to synthesize all of that and make sense of it, make some decisions about where to go with it. And we're really turning the corner then to 30% design and start engineering it and start construction next summer. So hopefully next summer we'll be out there in person. We can show you a real live backhoe. We've been moving real live dirt. We don't have to be doing just the videos. And then next slide, Mike, just real quick. So this, when I keep talking about the pathways, so if you haven't spent time walking on this corridor, there are some pretty special areas along this. For such a busy road, there's almost like these pocket parks where there are asphalt paths that kind of go away from the road, and people have told us how much they appreciate that when they're walking their bike or walking their dog or biking with their kids. You can really separate from traffic, sometimes actually get into the trees. It's pretty cool. But many of them are very old and need some TLC. This shows the location near Byram Elementary School, where we're hoping to both improve the path on one side of the street and also on the other, in addition to just adding bike lanes to the road. Any questions about that project? There's a lot happening on that one. Okay.
I think
Can I-
one thing that I'll mention.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Brooks.
Councilor Brooks.
I'm just curious with the original picture of the area that we're improving.
Mhm.
I live
There you
close
go.
by there. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just am wondering if there's ever, or if there is even currently, ways to get through over to like Community Park and the other side of Tualatin Sherwood Road.
On the north, so to the north of Sherwood Road. So if
Mhm.
the line kept going up.
Yeah, like if you want to ride your bike and
Yeah.
go further than this is not a very long bike ride.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So you'll see that the line stops just short of Tualatin Sherwood Road there, and that's because that teeny little gap, which is right by where the McDonald's is, it's the most difficult part of the project. So with the project as currently funded and currently designed, we're going to go just short of that, and looking at options. Probably it'll be signage to help people safely kind of go up on the sidewalk or something like that is most likely what we'll do there. That's the section that we'd need to actually buy right of way and negotiate with the property owners, widen the street to be able to really create safe place for walking and biking. So that's going to continue to be a gap, unfortunately. North of Tualatin Sherwood Road, there's a separate project that is going to be adding buffered bike lanes to help get up to the community park. So that's also in the works.
Okay.
But there's still going to be that
little
gap, and
gap
we've
where you
heard
have
from
to
a
walk
lot
your
of people
bike.
about that. Mhm.
But that'll be good still. If there's a little gap to walk your bike and then you can get back on the new
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And like we're seeing as we're evaluating the corridor more that there's far more needs than we'd be able to really address with the funding available through the program. So we'll probably have more conversations about how to fund some more of the work on the corridor. And then we move on to our next stop. And this is another project that we're working on with the state. And particularly if you live in the Pony Ridge subdivision out in this area and trying to walk to almost anywhere is very difficult right now. And so we're trying to build a pathway along the northwest side of Highway 99 from the Pony Ridge subdivision over to 124th Avenue, where there is a signalized crosswalk. And this is a video that we're using to try to demonstrate the issue. Talk loud enough to go over it. But this is the kind of walk that people have to do trying to get to the site. I think we'll stop it there. And the project and what we're looking to do is build a walkway back here, back along the edge of the right-of-way line. We'll have to dodge around the existing utility poles because it's a big transmission line. And that'll be a little bit of an unusual project because the state typically likes to build everything to their standards when it's kind of their full new construction standards. And that cost ends up being millions of dollars for this project. And what we're looking to do is build in a walkway along this area, just give people a safe place to walk that's not right here between a laurel hedge and a truck. So, and that's something that we've had some pretty good progress, I think, working with the state on that. And so we hope to get to the construction soon. And then stop 7 is actually 6 different stops. And fortunately, we can do that in this virtual format. If we're in an actual bus, I don't think we'd be driving to all 6 of these. And this is our neighborhood traffic management, our neighborhood traffic safety program for this year. And it's a half dozen projects, a lot of which are flashing lights at crosswalks. We call them RRFBs, which are rectangular rapid flashing beacons. That's where you press the button and you get the yellow flashing lights. And then we found them to be far more effective at getting drivers to stop when you're in the crosswalk. So several of those projects. One just recently installed at Boons Ferry Road at Arapahoe that actually has streetlights built into the RRFB units, which is a fairly new treatment, but it's important for us to get street lighting there. Another one under construction on Hazelbrook Road near Juergens Park, and then Boons Ferry Road connecting from the Commons over to the Pole Center. And then some slightly different projects, one on Nyberg Lane at 57th Avenue to try to help people walking across Nyberg to and from the park. And then another one on 50th and Wilkie, partly helping people cross the street there and also trying to keep cars from running off the end of that curve. And then the first one we completed this year was at Culvert Street and 72nd Avenue. And so this is a sample of the plans for one of those. And in this particular one, the ramps had already been built a few years back, but it was during a time when the rectangular rapid flashing beacon due to some patent issues wasn't approved for use. So we put those in. And here's an example of some of what we use to reach out to the neighbors and let them know that construction's happening. So we mail that out to some of the people around each of the projects. And then this is the construction work happening. And we did include some of the artwork stamps. That's our mastodon. I think our sun moon here. And I think Be Kind was over in this area as well. So this is what it looks like when they're pouring the ramps. And they did have to revise these a bit to meet ADA standards with the RFBs in place. And this is what the flashing lights look like afterwards. So you can come up, press the button, these lights flash nice and bright, and grab the driver's attention a bit. And we found it really helps for people crossing. And you know, a little ways to the east of here, the one that we installed right by at Falody Park, Sagard and Wampanoag, I've been amazed at how often I've seen that light on and how many people I've seen using it and how many more people we've seen crossing there since we installed it a couple years ago. So I think that's been great. And we're now returning back to the Pole Center for the end of our bus tour. Please collect all of your belongings and thank you very much for riding with us on this tour. And we'd love to hear if you have any other questions, comments, or suggestions.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, while you're getting off the bus, that I'm so proud of our team. I'm proud of the work that the team has done, and just for these 3 years. And so much has happened and is happening. And it's a really cohesive team with a clear focus and goal. I'm proud of the public involvement that we've done, and how centered we are around the community and getting their feedback and input. And I can't say enough about the work that Mike's doing, that Katie's doing, that Megan and just the rest of the team are doing on the community's behalf. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Hillier's hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I was curious, when we were talking about the speed signs on Boons Ferry, I'm curious if when you come out of the high school, because when you come out of the high school, you really never know if the flashing lights are on. You don't know what time of, you know, if it's 20 or if it's 35. Are there going to be some sort of amendment there, Katie, to help people who are coming out of school at kind of that in-between time?
Yeah, the school zone signs. That is actually a really good question. I think that's probably something that we should look into. It hasn't been on the list of issues. Mike, do you agree that's probably something we should look at? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I think with Tualatin Elementary, I think we were just, you know, the complaints came right away. So, but this is the perfect time to raise those kinds of issues, and that could be the kind of thing that fits within this program, with this
That's great.
project.
Thank you. On Boons Ferry and on near Tualatin. That's what I meant, is the high school. Was I clear about that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Councilor Pratt.
Thank you for the tour, and thank you for making an electric vehicle, because I had no fumes at the back of the bus. So that was great. I'm so glad so many of these projects are dealing with safety. The one question I have, I've not seen this project on the list, but when you're exiting out of Tualatin Park, especially on a bike, there's no way to cross the road there. So is the expectation just to turn right going west to that crosswalk that's towards the police station? Is that the expected flow out of there? Or do you just need to kind of wait for your moment like I do to get your bike across the street there?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. That's actually an area where we have a project that we didn't even mention in the slideshow. Should be starting within a few weeks to rebuild the sidewalk in front of the police station and enhance that crosswalk. And that's the first phase of that project. The second phase involves coordination with the rails. That makes it take a little longer. and that's to try to widen out the sidewalk there from that connection over. And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for the pulling the bike out because of the way the road goes and the rail is. We can enhance that a little bit. So we're trying to make it a little better for getting onto the sidewalk and then getting across. But it's still kind of either kind of more timid cyclists would be best on the sidewalk going across and then coming out of the crosswalk. And then the more kind of bold and fearless cyclists will be coming out more and just using the bike lane. So.
Any other questions for Mike or Katie? I just got one quick thing. The video you presented of 99W just reiterates why the 5 cities in this area of the county need to advocate at the state level to have the state take care of 99W. We did get that funding, the $1 million package through for a study, but that's it. And we continue to advocate at the legislature to get this resolved. They just keep pushing us off as usual. This is a 70s style highway built to outdated standards that we need to fix. And it should be the city doing this. It should be the state ponying up the money and improving their facility. But I just want to remind people we got to keep advocating, to our legislators and at this, at the state level, when we have meetings with state, ODOT officials, that 99W has to be corrected, starting at Sherwood all the way north to I-5. Every city has issues with 99W who surrounds it, so it needs to be fixed.
Feel free to use that video to illustrate that point.
Well, when we went to the legislature a few years ago, we had all kinds of, scary freaking pictures. And that's why we got the $1 million. But it has stopped since. So, and there was another package of money that never made it through because of the walkout, but we'll continue to press on because we need to get this fixed. All right, anything else for Katie and Mike?
I just want to say thank you again to, I really appreciate the public engagement and the fact that, that we're really honoring our citizens that are supporting this bond and supporting this work and always coming in ahead of schedule and below cost. And anyway, so I just appreciate that and all the mindfulness around the environmental, the safety, and the traffic flow concerns, which is just such a big issue for everybody. Thanks.
Well, thank you. And there's a number of staff that have been involved in putting all this together and a large consultant team that have all been working together. So it's really been a great team to work with.
Thank you both.
Well, thank you.
So moving on to item number 2, the CIO or Community Involvement Organization Program discussion. I just see Megan, but her face just popped up. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, thank you. Yes, this one's me. I will go ahead and share my screen. All right. I am here this evening to talk to you about the Community Involvement Organization Program, or the CIOs as they are more commonly referred to. Tonight's presentation will have a variety of different things, including an overview of the purpose, the structure, the early timeline of the program. We'll take a peek at the Tualatin Municipal Code. I know everybody's really excited for that piece of it. And then we'll also delve into the current status of the program. We had a recent survey and meeting with folks who are currently involved, a list of accomplishments that the CIOs have drafted, and then talk about the current leadership. So that's what I've got on the docket. So getting started. So the program itself, the purpose statement is to provide an opportunity for members to meaningfully cooperate with each other and with the city of Tualatin, that's us, on matters that affect neighborhoods in the city, consistent with a list of principles of citizen involvement that were adopted by the city council. That was included as an attachment in your packet for this evening. A major purpose of the program is to promote communication and a sense of community. So this purpose statement is included in the municipal code. And the way they do this is through 6 residential CIOs that spread the entirety of the city with a few small exceptions, and then a commercial CIO. The code also provides an option for what's called the Citizen Involvement Coordinating Committee, or the CICC, should one be formed. That would be an organizing body for the entire program. In practice, the CICC has not been formed. However, a president's group has met regularly throughout the years. So the residential CIOs are groups of community members within the specified boundaries. And then the commercial CIO in practice accepts anybody who is a business owner within the city of Tualatin. So this next slide should have a fairly familiar image. This is our CIO program map. I think this one was updated a couple months ago to reflect some of the new boundary with the annexations in the south part of the city. So each CIO has a different color. When this map was originally put together 10 years ago, the intent was to have each of the CIOs generally have about the same number of people within it, or same number of households. As time has gone on, that's shifted a little bit, and you can see the geographic area that each CIO encompasses is a little bit different, but generally they've stayed fairly consistent. It is within the city council's responsibility to approve any changes to the CIO boundaries, and the city council has not done that. In addition, if you are a resident of Tualatin but do not fit within one of the CIOs, you may choose to join the CIO closest to you. So for the most part, everybody is covered, but there's a few different ones. In addition, the code also allows for the creation of an industrial CIO, which you can see pictured there on the left hand of your screen. That no industrial CIO was formed, and the commercial CIO has taken over for any businesses that may have otherwise identified as industrial. So the early timeline. So it's been 10 years. In June 2010, the city council at the time established an ad hoc committee of community members and a few city councilors to discuss a future, what became this community involvement program. This committee met for a little under a year and worked with the city council between March and May of 2011 to talk about the program and offered a recommendation, and the council discussed it. In June of 2011, the city council adopted those principles of citizen engagement. And then in August of 2011, they established the CIO program and put it into Tualatin Municipal Code. From after that point through the next year, the 6 residential and 1 commercial CIOs were established. When they came to the city council, there was an establishment ordinance, and they were required to provide a copy of their bylaws, having had a membership meeting already. Later in April of 2013, the grant program policy was adopted. We currently have the grant program still. It provides a total of $1,500 for each CIO that they may apply to use throughout the year on a variety of different projects that fit within the grant program's criteria. Previous awards were made for things like decorative sign toppers, emergency supplies. Lots of CIOs have used their funding to purchase kits and neighborhood ready supplies. Recently, Martinazzi Woods CIO applied for and received funding for a dog refuse station at one of the trail heads. Let's see, all right, so this is the snippet from our code. So the Citizen Involvement Program, or CIOP, has an entire chapter dedicated with 10 different sections. And never fear, I won't go through all 10 of them. In fact, we've already covered 2 of them. So just a few more that I want to highlight. The first one is the membership and standards. So this is an excerpt taken from the code. So there are a few different things that a CIO must do to continue to be recognized by the city council. Those things include an annual election of officers, some public meeting notice requirements, providing contact information, and then holding 2 organizational meetings a year. So in practice, we haven't, or the city council has not enforced these requirements, but this is generally what the program is centered around, these types of things. Next one I wanted to highlight is the city support. So this basically says that if we can, we will help to support them. We've done this throughout the entirety of the program in a few different ways. So in terms of the human support that we've provided, we have had a staff position dedicated to the program as a portion of their duties. That's been, of course, our community engagement coordinator, Betsy Roof, and myself in the past couple of years. We do things to help administer the program. So that could include scheduling Zoom meetings or scheduling in-person meetings, depending on the environment. Providing record keeping, taking minutes, connecting different individuals within the CIO program with folks on staff or with other government entities, depending on what the question or the need is. We as staff have also presented both at the CIO president's meetings as well as the annual meetings. I know it is common for our police department to provide a presentation, as well as folks from our community development department. Our bond program is another common speaker. So we've dedicated staff time there. And then we also provide notifications of land use applications. And our community development department hosts a quarterly land use meeting with the land use officers in the CIO program and provides information so that if the CIOs are interested, they can provide comment given that information. This fluctuates in terms of how much time we're spending. It can be up to 8 hours a week, sometimes more depending on what's going on, and sometimes less. We've also provided financial support to the program. So I talked already about the $1,500 per CIO that we provide in grant funding. We also budget about $6,000 for general administration of the program. This includes things like marketing materials for those annual meetings. So you've seen the yard signs, probably received postcards in the mail. We also provide snacks for the meetings. We budget and pay for the domain name for the CIO website and the website platform itself. Keep going here. The last thing I wanted to highlight in the code is the input to the city council. So this has also looked differently depending on the year. It has looked like personal communications that you all have received directly from CIO board members on a variety of topics. You will have noticed that CIO members often attend city council meetings and may choose to provide public comment on different issues. In the past, they've also drafted issue memorandums from specific boards on particular issues and offer those up to the city council. The city council is also typically asked to present and attend at annual meetings. I know many of you have participated in that in the past. And the council has also specifically reached out to the CIOs or directed staff to reach out to the CIOs on issues of great importance. A few examples of that include the extension of Seneca Street, chickens, and marijuana most recently. All right, so the current status of the program. So before I jump into these 3 statements, I want to say that these were informed by the survey results, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as personal conversations with CIO members, and then staff's observations of the program. These current status statements were presented to the CIOs during the meeting, which I'll also review in a few minutes. So the first one is that there's been a significant number of board resignations in the last 18 months. Second one is there have been few annual meetings held in the last 18 months. And the third, this one particularly came out in the survey results when folks shared that even when they did have a meeting, very few people attended, or they received information from the city but didn't have perhaps an email list or a venue to share that information with other people. And so the third status statement is limited connection between CIOs and residents. You can see that I included the timeline for a few of these items, and the elephant in the room, of course, is that we've been in a global pandemic for much of this time, and certainly that has had a tremendous impact on the CIO program. So jumping in, this also happens to be the 10-year anniversary of the program. So we took the opportunity, given the challenges and given this significant milestone, to reach out directly to those who had been involved in the CIO program recently to hear their feedback and to get their perspectives on how things were going and what could be done. So we distributed a survey in late June, received about 20 responses, and I've got a few key results I want to share with you. Following the survey, we also scheduled an in-person meeting in late, I want to say, it was August 12th, I think was the date, to follow up on that conversation, talk about the current status of the program and opportunities to re-energize it. So jumping into those survey results, one of the key questions that we asked is, what are the most valuable aspects of the current CIO program to you? So respondents were allowed to select more than one, and many chose to, but the most popular results were access to information about city programs and projects, and opportunity to meet people in my CIO. The next question that we asked, and I apologize, this graph is a little bit difficult to read, is, to your best knowledge, how often have you or your CIO participated in the following activities? So along the left in the rows, those are different activities. At the very bottom, there's the key with each color indicating how many responses for each of those sections were provided. So let's just take the top one, for example, participated in CERT or Tualatin Neighborhood Ready. So yellow jumps out with 11 votes. So 11 people said that they often participated in CERT or Neighborhood Ready, as compared to 3 people saying sometimes, 1 person saying never, and 4 people saying I don't know. Another significant one to point out is provided input to city staff about an issue or project. 9 people said sometimes, 5 people said often. Another one to point out is asked city staff a question about an issue or a project. 10 people said sometimes, 6 people said often, 3 people said I don't know. Nobody responded never or rarely. And there's quite a few more there that you can review if you'd like. And the last question I want to highlight is, in your opinion, what are the most pressing challenges to operating the CIO program? So we provided some options that they could fill in. They were also offered the opportunity to write in different ones, and we did see several written in options, including, of course, the pandemic being one of them, as well as changes in leadership and things of that nature. So the most popular one that came out of this was lack of interest to participate from community members, followed by little knowledge of program and broader community. Those 2 items were certainly strong themes as we got into the meeting with the folks. So it's part of the agenda. On August 12th, we reviewed the survey results. We talked about the current status statements. And then we also spent quite a bit of time talking about how do we re-energize the CIO program. And for those who know me, I like butcher paper, I like chart paper, I like sticky notes. And so we used all of those during the meeting. So we had folks gather in small groups and brainstorm different ways that we could re-energize the program. Each sticky note has a different idea. Then we came all back together at the end and put those up on the board, grouping them according to different themes. And so I've got the themes laid out here. So first is how-to guides. There were a few suggestions about just like, how do you be a board member? How do you get to a full board? Some of those things that historical knowledge is helpful for. Marketing promotion was a big category. We saw that in the survey results that there was a big need there, and there were a lot of ideas to get that going. And certainly the next few slides will cover some of that. Enhanced and increased events. So they've done annual meetings, but there was an interest in doing some more fun ideas. The CIO website, it is currently live as of Sunday. I encourage you to take a look, tualatincio.org. Knowledge of the community, so having access to more information about what's going on in the community and just some of the basic metrics. Structural changes to the program. There's an interest in updating bylaws potentially. City and CIO coordination. So this is information flowing from the CIOs to the staff and to the city council and back the other way, and making sure that the flow of information is well understood and accessible. And then lastly, program purpose. So this is interesting. It seems that the CIOs have been successful when they've had a particular issue to advocate for. And we've seen lots of success in those topics as well. So there were a couple of key outcomes of the meeting. The first is that an ad hoc leadership committee was established. There is at least one representative from each CIO represented on this ad hoc committee. They're meeting every 2 weeks, and staff is involved. And they have a list of objectives. These are the primary ones. So first is developing marketing materials. They're well underway with this, of course, with their website launching. They're also working on a brochure and other informational materials that they will be able to distribute to the community on a regular basis to generate interest and knowledge and awareness of the program. They're looking to fill vacant board positions, and they've done a lot of that work as well. Schedule annual meetings. Each CIO is intending to have their annual meeting in the next few months. Update bylaws as needed. One of the initial things that they would like to change is many of them are still listed as numbers. They would like to be listed as their true names. And then they're also considering the eventual formation of the Citizen Involvement Coordinating Committee and disbanding this ad hoc leadership committee so that they have a formalized structure to operate under. One of the other outcomes outcomes of this meeting is that they began working on a list of their top activities from the last 10 years. So the ad hoc leadership committee took that initial brainstorm and then worked on it quite a bit. And you saw the document attached in the agenda packet with a long list of activities that they've worked on over the last 10 years. To spotlight just a few. First, of course, we heard about earlier this evening is Garden Corner Curves. There were several members, particularly from the IBOC CIO, that were greatly involved in advocating for this project. In a few short months, we should be able to see the results of those efforts. Another that you'll notice throughout town is the decorative sign toppers. So these appear on top of street signs, indicating which CIO you are a part of. And so many have chosen to use their grant funds over the years to purchase these sign toppers, working with our street sewer and storm manager, Bert Kohlheiser. And lastly, the emergency preparedness. So this document included a lot of references to the number of people engaged in emergency preparedness. And this could look differently depending on the person, but it certainly includes CERT, Neighborhood Ready, the ham radio initiative. Grant funds have been used to support these efforts in the past, and there's certainly a lot of overlap between folks involved in the CIO program and CERT. This is the current leadership. So each CIO has at least 2 members. Many of them have full or almost full boards. Some of these people have been involved in the program since the initial formation 10 years ago. Some have been recently added to these board lists, and these are the individuals who currently hold a board position. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. So I'll lower my screen. So as I mentioned, the ad hoc leadership committee is meeting every 2 weeks, and will continue to do so to work through those items, and staff has been included as part of those conversations. Look forward to your discussion.
Thanks, Megan. Questions for Megan? Councilor Pratt.
I was just wondering, like, I guess I got a sense because I attended that one meeting that, did you just feel the attitude of the group was positive, or, generally was positive, or I guess I'm just a fan of these because I think they really promote a sense of community, and I would love to see more communication directly to us, but I'm just wondering what the overall feeling you got from I know you've met with them a few times, so I'm just wondering what the overall feeling you got, if it was positive, negative, or mixed.
Yeah, I think my perspective is that a lot of people have been frustrated, particularly in the last couple of years, with the limitations and the challenges that I reviewed earlier. I think that there's also a lot of energy to reinvigorate the program at this point. And there's a number of people who have stepped up. They've been really clear about having, it is significant that that number of people attended the meeting in the first place. We had almost 100% attendance for those who still held a board position. In addition, there's a significant number of people who've chosen to continue on, and they've been clear that even if you aren't willing to sit on this ad hoc leadership committee, you're still involved with the program, there's still a role. We just need different people at different moments in time. So my perspective is that it's been overall positive. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and they are engaging in a lot of work right now to take those steps.
Thank you.
Reyes.
Thank you, Megan, for your presentation, taking the survey. I think that's very helpful to me and what the community is thinking. I think the CIOs obviously are vital, but I do have several questions that I wrote down as you were giving the presentation, so bear with me a little bit. Did you see any decline pre-COVID, or was it right after COVID that you started seeing less and lesser? And I don't know if you were, I can't remember if you were here or not during that time, but I'm just wondering if it was already like in decline before COVID.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we certainly saw board resignations during the pandemic. Some of them came in before the pandemic. And I think the challenges that we referenced already existed. The pandemic exacerbated them. They were challenges that already existed.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, because you said about 18 members resigned. So must have exasperated the whole, being at home, not being able to connect, being on lockdowns and all that. So I can imagine that. The other,
Actually,
go ahead.
Oh, just to clarify, it was not 18 members who had resigned. 18 months was the time
Oh,
period.
18 months,
included.
sorry.
Mhm.
I read my notes wrong, bad writing. But I did hear about members resigning, so I thought it was that. The other would be, is it moving forward? I'm thinking of how do we revitalize this or make it much more engaging. I'm thinking CIO, the name, it sounds a little formal. Maybe the changing of the name will work a little bit. Did anyone say anything about, because I don't even know till this day know what it means. I just know it's CIO, but I feel like it's for people like that are new to the community and they want to re-engage. And the reason I'm bringing this up because I see a lot of those during our interviews when we meet people in the community and they want to get involved. They just CIO seems a little bit like, what is that and what does it mean? And so maybe either considering using the entire name of it, or changing it to something that sounds more neighborhood together, something like that, will be a way of attracting people or giving people that idea that it is a community per district within Tualatin. That, I don't know, did anyone say, what is a CIO, or did you hear anything like that while you were doing your survey?
Yeah, certainly during the meeting that we held, we heard that a lot. A lot of people had spoken with their neighbors or other community members and referenced the CIO program or even the community involvement organization program. And folks were like, I'm not sure, I don't know what that means. I've lived here for 15 years. So they've identified that as a big challenge to overcome, which is why part of their initial work has been so focused on marketing the program and building resources so that they can share that information. I think part of their hope is that as people become better aware of the program, there will be more interest in participating in the program. The technical name of the program, or the name that's still included in the code, is Citizen Involvement Program. And several years ago, they decided to change it from citizen involvement organizations to community involvement organizations in the hopes that that would be more inclusive. That change hasn't been made in code, and that's one of the things that they've identified on their long list of items that they'd like to look at. But they have not talked about changing it from community involvement organizations.
Funny thing, I have to say this because I'm one of those individuals that is sometimes a little ignorant where the names come from. But I actually thought CIO was a thing that happened in every city in the world. Not in the world, but at least in the US. And so then I realized it's just us here in Tualatin, because I kept saying, I think I said it somewhere like in Tiger or Hills, somewhere around that, in another city, and they're like, what is that? Like they stared at me funny. And then I'm like, okay, that's probably just a Tualatin thing. So I just want to throw that out. The other, calling it board member, sometimes I think that people might see that as they have authority to make a change, or they have authority, so maybe consider what a member, or what does it look like, or it also excludes people from, being a board member in the nonprofit industry means you go through a process of interview and you have to have some status. And so maybe those are things that we need to reconsider if we want this program to continue within our city. Because it does come into my mind as someone that's been in the industry of 501c3s forever, that a board member is someone that is actually making decisions for a specific organization or specific. So we want to, I don't know, we want to continue using that term because that may be throwing people off. And also perhaps, and I know we market this in different, you talked about marketing, and I know we market this and we talk to a lot of the people that are interested in serving in our communities. We talked about other ways of serving and other ways of doing there. I want to believe there are more people out there that want to get engaged. They just, I think by calling it CIOs, all these things, it's confusing them, because they might think that the CC, the City Council Committee, Advisory Committees, they might think that's a CIO. And so I'm just telling you because I was confused about this whole thing when I first moved to Tualatin 8 years ago. So maybe like, those are things that we can help promote it in our committee interviews to say, hey, if you're not, maybe you can join a group of neighbors that are talking about specific topics that can influence the city council. So I think that those are be more clear on what their role is, and I can promote it within that, because there are always people that want to serve. But those are just things that I wrote down as you were giving the presentation. So thank you very much. And yeah, and I'm done. Thanks.
Other questions or comments for Megan? Councilor Hilliard.
Thank you. Megan, I'm making an assumption that Betsy is making sure that everything is at least as culturally responsive as possible in the communications that are being formed to meet the needs of different speaking people in our community.
So the CIOs are leading the efforts to communicate. We're providing administrative support and taking their lead on how they would like to share information. I'm not aware of information going out in Spanish, if that's one of the items you're referring to.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Megan, for this update. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. I remember, being one of the folks working with Jen, Genta, and Kathy Holland and all those folks up here in Northern Tualatin to get the CIOs going. And then definitely will never forget the chicken debate. I'm looking forward to having a re-energized program and hearing back from folks with the CIO program. And like you said, it's usually people are get active when they have an issue they want to deal with and want to advocate for. And that's what the CIOs are for, is the communication between the city and the community. And it goes both ways, the communication flow. So I always appreciate when I'm approached by a CIO member who wants to chat and bring me up to speed on what's going on in their CIO. All right. So with that ends our second item of the night. So let's see. So Pledge of Allegiance, I think, is Councilor Pratt, correct? All right. And then we have one announcement where we have is it a proclamation? So who would like to do that, the emergency preparedness proclamation? All right, Councilor Pratt. All right. And then any questions on the consent agenda, the 3 items we have on consent tonight? All right. So we have about 15 minutes, so we can go ahead and start in council communications. Recall that at 6:30 we have to stop, and we're going to switch into executive session. So we'll use this time we have right now to go ahead and begin. And I'll start off with Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for also highlighting the needs of 99. I just think I hear about accidents and stuff on that road all the time, and it's just so dangerous, and appreciate that. As far as council communications, I sent out an email earlier in the week. We didn't have the PAB meeting yet. It's going to be next week because of notice. There's an opportunity for public comment on the CAPER, which is the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for 2021 and years 20 and 21. And just a reminder that this covers the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Emergency Shutdown Grant, and the Home Investment Partnerships Program. And one exciting thing is a reminder is some of the monies is going to funding the housing project in the Basalt Creek area. So then I also went to September 8th. I went to the Regional Water Consortium Board Executive Committee for the first time as the new chair of that committee. And we just discussed that in October's meeting, we will be kind of overviewing the strategic plan for the Regional Water Consortium Board. And we also highlighted how the regional consortium has improved its regional partnerships over the years. And our dearly departed Jeff Fox has been such a leader in that. And so I just wanted to say that that's something that that our little city has a big footprint around. And the stories around both the fires and the storms are incredibly inspiring of what people in public works do. When people wonder about what government does and doesn't do, I wish that we could talk as much about what these folks did and what the cities did to work together to make sure that everyone had safe, clean, affordable drinking water during such difficult times. So I just want to reiterate that again and applaud the leadership in our city as well as across the region. And I'm really proud to be the first female chair of that regional water consortium board. So, and part of what we are going to be, what we do is also is safety, which is a big thing today, and having enough water to prepare for emergencies. And also upcoming this week, I will be attending, it's an interesting meeting, so I decided to bring it to attention. The Arts Advisory Committee is joining with T Park for a conversation around the Basalt Creek area. So that's going to be an interesting meeting coming up. And I also joined Councilor Pratt and Reyes with the Community Advisory Appointments Committee, and that was inspiring as usual. We had so many amazing applicants that you wish you had more positions to fill. They're hard choices. And we had openings in the park, just one, and in the development planning committee. And we just heard from, it's just inspiring to hear and get to know our residents better, and especially folks that do want to be involved. And that just takes me to my gratitude also for the people that have been in leadership. I know that you can't be in people talk about term limits and this and that. You can't be in leadership on boards forever. But everyone that's put themselves forward currently and in the past, we really appreciate the CIO program. I remember when we were meeting in person, I could go to my park and there were different activities and get to know you events that are just difficult to plan and organize right now. So I totally, Zoom fatigue is real. I understand it. I'm with you. And at the same time, I just, every time that somebody steps forward and counterbalances some of the things that are going wrong with being part of the solution and volunteering and contributing to community, I just really want to applaud. And sorry for rambling, but that's my, thanks. You're on mute, Mayor.
Councilor Pratt, you're up.
Okay, I attended, I don't know what this group's name is, I keep forgetting, the Land and Indigenous Acknowledgement Work Group, and it's really a great group, and I'm just impressed with all the input people give there. I went to two climate action task, the Clackamas County Climate Action Task Force meeting, and we got divided up into different, I guess you call them areas of interest about climate action, and surprise, surprise, I got put on transportation, and since I'm representing C4, which is about transportation. So, and that, what I found out about that, the one thing I found out is we had an update from the different Clackamas County transit providers, and TriMet said that they're considering a future express lines service from Clackamas Community College and Clackamas Town Center to Tualatin the Tiger as part of that ODOT tolling analysis. So I think especially the Clackamas Community College one would be great if it ever happened. So we can have people from our area go to school there and have a way to get there. Anyway, and also the C4 retreat, that was going to be October 1st and 2nd. There was a vote to cancel that and just do it on Saturday. So not quite as fun to think about meeting people. And then the last thing was, as Councilor Brooks said, we had our CCAA advisory committee appointments meeting, and we met with T Park and Planning Commission candidates, and I'm just so impressed. There were a lot of people that have lived in Tualatin 5 years or less in this group for some reason, and I'm just always amazed at their service, and that and they really seem to appreciate what Tualatin has to offer the staff and the sense of community they felt. One lady even said it felt like Mayberry. So that was kind of nice to hear. That's all I have.
Councilor Reyes.
Not much outside or just regular CCAA meeting, but nothing from the county or any other meetings that I've attended the last couple of weeks. But I do have to agree with my fellow councilors, Councilor Pratt and Brooks. Those meetings, even though I'm so tired by then, I mean, I'm zoom out and I just cannot watch anything else anymore. I find it encouraging and uplifting every time I start talking to people and learning more about themselves and learning about their wanting to volunteer and do something for the community. That's always inspiring. And then at the end, I feel much better and I'm like, oh, thank God I serve on this. But it does, after a while, looking at the screen for some time does take a toll on you. And I appreciate my fellow council members who always support me and understand when I'm burned out by the time we have our meetings. But I have to say also the people that come is just always amazing, and I cannot be any more prouder than than anything, being part of this city and it's actually an honor to interview these individuals because they have the heart and they have the passion and they want to do things, and I'm glad that we have those kinds of individuals in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Hillier.
Good evening, everyone. Councilor Sacco and I attended the SRO task force meeting on August 31st. There were 25 or so stakeholders who attended. It's the first of many meetings, as you might guess, and the school district Zinnia led us in a lot of thought-provoking conversation, and really the core of it is to step into the community with care. And we reviewed an incident response flow chart and some other things that we'll be getting a deeper dive into here soon. And so it was nice to work with people who were interested in evidence-based ways to move that work forward. And as always, our police department, I think Sergeant Rankin may have been the only one there. It was hard on the Zoom screens to see all the people, but of course represented us well, as always. And I also want to just mention that it is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and suicidal thoughts, much like a mental health condition, can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, or background. In fact, suicide is often the result of an untreated mental health condition. Suicidal thoughts, although common, should not be considered normal and often indicate more serious issues. And it is very appropriate, especially during this time, to study up on understanding what is okay to see to someone who may be considering death by suicide. And there is a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline that I would encourage people to put into their phones and understand when they might need to use it, because talking to someone about their mental health and about considering death by suicide does not make them more or less likely to do that. It actually is a way for them to talk and could create an opportunity for them to get the help they need. But the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number is 1-800-273-TALK, or obviously if there's an emergency, call 911. But I would encourage folks to just plug that in. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Grimes.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. I look forward to a time when we can all be in the same room at the same time. And I hope maybe by the fall we might get there. I haven't had any committee meetings since our last council meeting. So I have nothing to share on that end, but I do want to say how much I appreciated the presentations that staff made today, especially about the call to moving forward bond and the progress we're making there. I just love that program, and I love the community involvement and input and the way that that's really shaped a lot of the projects. And I just commend staff and everybody involved. I think that that's just a stellar program. And I look forward to the future when we can do other bond projects, maybe around parks and open spaces, and use this as sort of a template for a 4-star, well-run, great community input and involvement program. So that's just what I was thinking tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I just have a few things. I had 3 separate meetings for Greater Portland Inc. over the last few weeks. Things of note is the comprehensive economic development plan will be released on November 3rd to the region. Remember, this is the region-wide economic planning that includes Vancouver on how we're going to attract businesses to this area and make our economy even stronger and better than it is right now. The Economic Development Summit will be held on the 30th in Portland. I believe myself, Jonathan, and Sherilyn are going, in addition to some other city staff. They released a update today that you're going to have to approve your COVID vaccination status. So we're making it a very safe event for a couple hours. We'll be spending in Portland. Terrific presentation by Daniel Holbrook. He's one of the folks that's helping stand up the broadband office that's part of Business Oregon that was enacted back in 2019 by HB 2173 to expand broadband access throughout the state with the funds that the state's going to distribute out to the different regions to bridge the gap between the urban rural divide and also equity. So they have a lot of, they're still forming. They've got a big plan ahead, but they're going to start taking applications from different areas of the state to expand broadband access. Today was an interesting meeting at the Washington County Coordinating Committee. Washington County staff rolled out the MSTIP 2023 to 2028 funding allocation work plan, where they were asking for the County Coordinating Committee to approve the work plan. It was a very spirited conversation. We're going to get a presentation, I believe, of this in October of the work plan, but they were looking for approval today. Of note is they're going to add an additional step to how projects are reviewed and approved with having a technical work group, which is the subset of the Technical Advisory Committee. And of note, Mike McCarthy will be representing us on that for projects that are in front of MSTIP. They're also going to include in this go round Washington County Housing Authority and Clean Water Services. Would be part of the review process for funding of major transit routes. They heard loud and clear that the cities have to be very much involved with the development of MSTIP, and that includes both city staff and city councils. They're hoping to expand the Opportunity Fund. One of the things brought up is that the Opportunity Fund, it's money set aside for special projects that in the past have been first come, first served, and they want to, the cities would like that changed. That'd be more equitable, spread out between the 4 districts. lots of discussion about, and we've heard it before, some of us already, about what does equity in transportation look like? Because one of the big things in EPSTIP is to address equity issues and transportation projects, but no one can really define what that is yet. Is it done city by city? Is it done project by project? So all the cities have said, the cities need to have a voice in the metrics that are devised, what natural environments means, and what the definition of equity is when this plan goes forward. Let's see what else we do. There was supposed to be a presentation on tolling, Councilor Pratt, but it got cut short because we ran out of time because we ran over. What's important to know is that ODOT has put an update to the regional mobility pricing project. You can go to ODOT's website for more specifics. But what was interesting, we had gotten into a conversation of how ODOT is very at the ground level and has lots of detail versus the plan that's been released by Metro, which is more at the high level academic study of regional pricing. So trying to merge the two should be kind of interesting. I gave Charlene a highlight on Friday. I'm proud to announce that I was elected vice chair of the Washington County Coordinating Committee today. It was Jeff DeLynn, the mayor of Cornelius, will be the chair, and I'm going to be the vice chair for the next couple of years. There was a quick discussion of the new, if you haven't paid attention to this, you might want to, the new congressional and state district maps. If you're not aware, the new congressional district, District 6, is us. We would be part of this new district to be the, as we would call ourselves, the 5 families would be on the northern end of this congressional district. That would also include Salem. So if you haven't looked at those maps where it's proposed, you might want to look at, because there's a series of road shows going across the state right now for public input. And it's also redistricting done at the state level. So a lot of, I know particularly North Plains is not very happy with how the maps are aligning, and neither is Tigard on how their cities are being sliced and diced by districts. It's a possibility that the city of Tigard would have 5 state reps, all representing little snippets of the city. I'm reached out and contacted our representative Prusak. I'm waiting for her to get back to me on any implications on our district, because there, I can see a little bit of Tualatin getting chopped off in northern Tualatin, not northern Tualatin, area around Bridgeport seems to be impacted a little bit. So more to come on that. And then at the end of the meeting, there was a big, about a half-hour thank you session for Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Rogers has stepped, he's no longer going to lead the Washington County Coordinating Committee. He's been on that committee and leading it for 36 years. He is the go-to guy for transportation in Washington County. Commissioner 5 will be stepping into his shoes as the Washington County Commissioner representing transportation for Washington County Coordinating Committee. But it was just amazing that, Commissioner Rogers has been doing it for 36 years, and he knows, recounted all the mayors he's dealt with, but over the years, it was quite a few of them. But I want to thank him for his service over all those years, because remember, he's also a former Tualatin mayor. So he did take care of Washington County and the city very well. Last thing is reminding people, hopefully it doesn't rain, but this Friday, the 17th, the Tualatin Historical Society's auction is being held at the Historical Society building over at the Heritage Center next to the police department from 5:30 to 8. I think tickets are still available. They are limiting ticket sales, and it is being held outside with social distancing. So if you would like to attend or would like to donate money in lieu of attending, you can go to the Historical Society's website and help support them. This is their big annual event to fund their operations over the year. So with that, I'll go ahead and close this work session, and we'll have Bates do his magic so we can transfer into executive session.